The Washington Huskies. Why would I pick out that helmet and highlight the University of Washington football team? They're okay. They're not in the top 25. They're 7-3. They're okay. Why in the world did we lead the show with the Washington football team? Well, here's a take that you're not going to get anywhere else in college football, as we customarily here at the Voice of College Football, namely myself, am apt to give takes that nobody else gives anywhere at any time. I'm going to give this one to you. If you are not keeping up with politics in that section of the country, there has been an individual who has been elected the mayor of Seattle, who is like a despicable, horrible human being with absolutely no value. And when I say no value, I don't mean as determined by God, but no practical value on this planet. None, zero accomplishments, nothing, a moron. And I guess they elected this individual the mayor of Seattle. And I understand this is a state-run university, so there shouldn't be any overlap at all. But based on what's going on in this country, open your eyes to what's going on in this country in various facets. Do not be surprised if the first college football team that is impacted by the complete despicable takeover of this country would be in that city, because we just saw it about 5 years ago in various ways. So sorry for my political rant, but that's what it is. It has to be stated. It's just insane. All right. We'll be here for the next few minutes here. You determine that. So we would like to let you know that the Amazon links in the description section of this video and all the videos when you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. I usually say that that's the most important thing that I've said the entire night, but I guess tonight it's the second most important. And again, we'll talk college football now. We'll get away from the moral stench that's going on around us. All right, we got a big week in college football. We're going to run through the schedule. We're going to run through the rankings and as they mesh together. I heard a take on the rankings today, and I could only stomach it for about 45 seconds. And this is why. Not that there was anything egregiously wrong with the take, but this individual's perspective on the rankings and the most important aspect of these rankings started with number 1, number 2, number 3. Ohio State shouldn't be number 1. That's fine. It's not an ironclad case for Ohio State at number 1. Absolutely. I've only had them number 1 for about 2 weeks myself. Indiana's number 2, Texas A&M's number 3. And this individual just kind of went on that the committee messed that up. Maybe they did. First of all, it's not an egregious mistake. If it is a mistake, that's how I have those 3 ranked. But that is the least of the issues of these rankings. That is going to be worked out. Either Ohio State's going to drop a game to Michigan, or most likely Ohio State and Indiana play for the Big Ten championship in the number 1 ranking in the country. That's going to work itself out. We don't need to focus on Ohio State should be number 2, not number 1. Indiana should be 2 or 3, or Texas A&M, boy, they play in the SEC. Maybe they should be number 1. It doesn't matter right now. Those are the 3 most insignificant spots right now in the rankings. It's about BYU. It's about Miami. It's about Oklahoma. Why Oklahoma? They're number 8. Well, if they lose a game, is that schedule going to carry them? It's about those teams. It's about Texas Tech at number 5 now, possibly suffering a Big 12 championship loss and being able to buffer that to the bottom of the rankings or the bottom of the top 11 rankings. Also heard a take on X today. I don't know who these individuals were. I would cite their names if I knew who they were. They had a nice big following. They had like 300,000 followers on X, but they were two former football players. It's coming back to me, but I cannot remember who they were. I have never heard of the podcast or the platform. And then it was reposted by our buddy John Kurtz. Does a great job, of course, talking Big 12 football in particular. And we really like John. He's a smart guy. We've had him on many times here. And John was reposting this. I did not agree with either take. The two former football players' take was that the group of five is a joke. They do not belong playing in the playoff. Okay. I'm not saying I disagree with that. I'm just saying I'm not fully on board with that. And then, if I'm not misrepresenting John Kurtz repost, that he stated, okay, this is the kind of thinking that drives and is driving college football into the ditch, meaning this elitism, let's let the little guy crash and burn, ignore them, do not give them a chance. Okay. I am not on either side when it comes to this, because this is how I see it. I don't think there's a right or wrong here. It's a difference of perspectives. One perspective is, I want the 12 best teams in the country on the field. I totally get that perspective. That actually, from a competitive standpoint, makes the most sense. If we want competition, if we're most concerned about watching the best players and the best teams and the best coaches, the most talented players that were well coached and put it together, not, your 5-7 talented Texas team from 10 years ago. No, not talking about that type situation, but the teams that put it together, that are talented, that are the best. I totally get that perspective. Totally get it. And I'm not saying that I'm not partially on board with that. Then there's the other perspective that we have something in March called March Madness, and it has thrived through the years based on there being an upset factor there, an upset culture, let's call it. Even though it's overblown, it's over romanticized and all of that, it's the culture of when CBS comes on with their music at noon Eastern time on Thursday, the first day of March Madness, boom, they're blaring the music and the great upset shots in history, because that's what has given March Madness and that tournament its calling. That's become the brand, even if it is overhyped and overblown. And most of those upsets have occurred in early rounds and did not affect national championships. They're fun. They gave the little guy a chance against the future NBA All-Stars. Okay. So I'm okay with that as well, knowing full well that Tulane is not the 12th best team in the country. They're not the 20th best team in the country. They're not the 25th best team in the country. We may have them ranked there. They are not any of those things. Even their coach admits to that. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that perspective too, that if they're allowed to be playing FBS football and they make up 20 to 25% of the power conference team schedules and win some of those games, not against the teams that are going to be in the playoffs. When is the last time? That'd be a good question. Wonder when the last time a group of five team defeated a team. I think our answer is never, because basically we've had a 12-team playoff for one season. Then we had a 4-team that was exclusive, 4 teams. And then back to the BCS era, I was going to ask, when would a group of 5 team have ever defeated a playoff team? It's never happened. It has never happened. It will happen someday. It may take years and years and years, because for a power conference team to survive a group of 5 loss and still make the playoff that's going to take some lift. So just different ways to look at it. There are certain things that I am hard and fast rule. I've got a position. That's what I'm doing. That's where we are on that. But on that particular position, I can go either way on it. I don't want to see 3 group of 5 teams, or I don't want to see equal representation. I don't want to see the asinine zaniness, craziness, lunacy that's going on in our culture applied to college football, and having mediocre people and mediocre results elevated in some way for equity to be established in some stupid way. Of course not. But 1 seat at the table, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And whatever year it is, whether it's this year or next year, or it may have to be 15 years from now, that the 12 seed is upsetting the 5 seed in the 4th quarter. And suddenly what was it last year? Well, last year was a bit of an oddity with Clemson taking on Texas. From a name brand standpoint, it didn't sound like a 5-12 matchup. But what would have usually been the Boise State Texas game or the Boise State Clemson game, and it's going to happen one of these years. We're going to be like 24-20 in the 4th quarter. Could happen. Okay. Before we get to the calls, we've got 2 big guests coming up. Isaiah Hole talking Michigan football. So Isaiah Hole of Wolverines Wire and Locked On Wolverines fame joining us Friday at noon Eastern time. So we're live Friday at noon Eastern time. Bam, right here, be here talking Michigan football. Then I'm trying to get as many good guests for rivalry weekend, yes, rivalry week or weekend as possible. So in hot pursuit of Zach Smith, he has never turned me down yet, so I'm calling him out, I guess, to a certain extent. But he has not responded to my text yet, but it's only about 15 minutes old. So hope to have Zach Smith on to talk Ohio State, Michigan next week. And also we got Steve Dace lined up for a live show next Tuesday. Mark, you built banners for these. You built banners. Get them up there. I did this for a reason. Where are they? There it is. Steve Dace, Michigan Podcast, live next Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern time. And of course, I'll be on Michigan Podcast whenever that's released, I believe late on Tuesday. So Steve Dace live next Tuesday. And we will have Isaiah Hole here Friday, tomorrow, noon Eastern time. All right, let's get right to it. We got our good friend here.
Yes.
Buckeye.
Yes. Well, it's good to see that you continue to placate your largest fan base by continuing to have people that represent that program on your show, Mark.
Why would I not?
Well, I know. Well, consider you. I don't like what you picked before the season, but I'm not going to go there. By the way,
what I picked before what I did pick before the season.
Yeah. I take notes, Mark Rogers. I keep receipts, buddy.
Does that mean I should be rooting for Michigan next Saturday?
No, bite your tongue.
Root for Michigan next Saturday, so my prediction's right, and both of them are in the playoffs.
Bite your tongue, Mark Rogers. And when you go on Dace's show, I want you to dust off the Schleister jersey, by the way. It's about time you get that thing out of mothballs,
Dust off my camera right now.
That's for sure.
Yeah, let's get that out of here. Yeah, we'll go look for that.
Dust off the Schleister jersey. All right, Mark, before I get into the docket this week, I'd be remiss if I didn't get your reaction to the Franklin hire at Virginia Tech. I've not heard your opinion on that as of yet, and what you think does that bode well for the future of Virginia Tech? Is that the type of program where, Franklin can build them up? Obviously, the ACC is a conference where I think you can win some games. Virginia Tech has been a place where coaches have won games in the past. Your thoughts?
So we went to the bank here weeks ago with that story.
Okay.
We wrote that out and went right to the live stream with that whenever it first broke, like 3 weeks ago. So we jumped the gun a bit, but it did come to fruition. I think that's a great hire for Virginia Tech. I can't
Mm,
imagine them hiring anybody better than James Franklin. I think
mm,
that that is the ultimate hire for them. I've been wrong before. Some of the things I'm going to state, I don't think are as big an impact today as they would have been a few years ago, but they're still impactful in regards to his what has to be a relationship with high school football coaches in that region,
mhm.
recruiting ties to that region, players he's going to bring from Penn State, maybe not players that we know because those guys are going to go off to the NFL, but I'm talking about pretty talented football players. I would expect we've seen a trend that makes a whole lot of sense when a pretty high profile coach takes over a program that's expecting results pretty quickly, that they take advantage of that transfer portal. And I would
Mhm.
expect 5 or 6 of those guys to be coming from Penn State. I just think he does a really good job. And I think that he knows what he's doing and all of those things. And no, he may never be elite. And that may not be the job that gets him to elite status. But I don't think we can discount how stable that Penn State program was with him there. I do think he relates to the athletes and the recruits, and uh, that's part of his skill set.
Yeah.
I think he'll do a really good job uh, in the conference, and is arguably the best coach in the conference immediately.
I would say this. First of all, I think one of the big things with college football jobs, a couple things. First of all, where are you adjacent to talent is still, a factor. And I think that area in Virginia, the DMV, that area is a fertile ground for recruiting talent. So he's in a part of the country where there is talent within that base, within that region, that he can tap into. Second thing, I mentioned this to Matt Zemek when we talked about it. I think the other big thing for every college football coach is his ability to build up a staff. And I think that's where he may have missed, his last year here at Penn State. I think the Colt Nicky hire never worked out well as his OC. I always felt his best offenses. Now, this also had a lot to do with personnel, where with the McSorley Barkley teams, where Joe Moorhead ran those offense. By the way, coaching in Akron U right now, I don't know if that's how that's working out, but poor Joe
They got a
Moorhead.
big win against Bowling Green, I see, this
Yes.
week.
By the way, I heard you dogging the Kent Akron game, Mark. A few weeks. As a proud Kent alum, I'm a little bit,
I can go on the record as saying I've never seen one in my life. I've never seen a
really.
Kent Akron game in my life. I
Wow.
don't believe so. I can't imagine ever watching it, but I get a text. Well, you heard the whole story. I get a text from my
Yeah.
buddy. The Kent Akron game's on. So I get done here. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to settle in for the second half.
Yeah.
I couldn't stomach it. I took like 3 drives. I was done. Couldn't handle the announcers. Like
Jeez.
they were talking like they were announcing USC and UCLA, talking about just every 17-year-old within 2 hours of this game. They're just
Yeah.
locked in. They're glued to this game. I'm like, what universe do these people live in that they think people and just the pride that the people of Kent or Akron could just walk the streets with the next day. I just couldn't believe the hyperbole of this.
As two residents of that area of the country, Mark, and that area of the state. I mean, I can't believe a young Mark Rogers probably never moseyed down to Dick's Stadium and caught a Kent Akron game back in his younger days. I'm a little surprised by that.
Well, see, a younger Mark Rogers would have been closer to, I guess it was about equidistance there in Stowe, Ohio, between the
Yeah,
two.
yeah,
But Akron, well, I guess I attended both stadiums right around the same time. I had never been in either stadium, and at that point, it was the Rubber Bowl in Akron, of course.
that's
I had
right.
never been in either stadium until I was in college and interning at Channel 23 in Akron, and
Yep.
then I was assigned to have to go into those stadiums. and cover those games.
All right. Well, before we lose people reminiscing about the Rubber Bowl in Dick Stadium, let's veer the train back onto the tracks here, if I can, Mark. But I do want to say I think he's in the right region. I think if he gets his staff right, I think the ACC is a winnable conference. I think he can do a solid job there. Maybe this is the James Franklin rehabilitation project here, long and short of it. So, all right.
Really needed though.
What's that?
Like I understand, you took a bit of a little cliche from the Nick Saban,
Yeah, a little bit
there, but those people that we cite that that Saban took under his wing, they actually kind of needed the reclamation to their careers for
that's true. The Sarks and the Kiffins of the world.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Wouldn't put our buddy James Franklin in that class.
Well, that's true. I mean, even though it slid quickly, I mean, this was still a coach that was a play away from playing for the national championship last year, to be fair. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, you once told me about John Cooper. You flip a couple of games around in his career, how much different does it look? James Franklin, it's the same story,
Sure.
They don't blow the 15-point lead in 2017 in Columbus. Aller doesn't throw the bad pick against Notre Dame. There's a couple games in there, Mark, where his trajectory or history looks a lot different. So,
for sure.
All right. Well, DeReal's wants me to answer this question, so I'm going to go there. He's asking me how many SEC teams I think are going to make it, so I want to go there. First of all, I do think that there's a good chance still at 5. I do have to say, Missouri is getting back their quarterback this week. I heard that there's a chance that Prabula could be playing in this one. Are you hearing that too, by the way, from Missouri?
I am not hearing anything. I have to plead ignorance there.
Okay. Well, Prabula was playing solid football before the injury. They have a solid running back in Hardy. Missouri's not listen, Missouri beating Oklahoma, even if it's in Norman, how much would that shock Mark Rogers? I don't like this Oklahoma offense at all. I don't think it's necessarily looked really good post-Mateer, coming back from the injury. What's your thought?
Well, I will cite something that people like to cite from time to time that I am not a complete believer in. But again, I'm not discounting it, but I'm saying nobody's brought the proof, and that's a letdown game.
Mm-hmm.
So the letdown off the Alabama high to the next week. Okay, if you buy into that, which I think it's completely human nature, so I'm not discounting it. So that you've got that factor. Yeah, Oklahoma's not a juggernaut by any stretch. They barely had 200 yards of total offense against Alabama. They threw for 130 yards in that game. They made if Missouri and if Eli Drinkwitz and his staff is good enough to protect the quarterback, to watch that game tape, that's pretty much the difference in the game was them harassing Ty Simpson.
Yes.
And making about 4 plays. I remember I did, I watched the game. I did the
watched the entire game
on it. They kept shutting down every drive on a sack. And then they had a strip sack that was huge in that game.
Yeah.
That turned field position and obviously set them up for a score. So they won that game on like 4 plays.
You know what? In watching that game, I think it did finally expose maybe some Alabama weaknesses. Josh Perry brought up a great point in the post game on NBC. He really had, and I've said this for the last few years, ever since we faced the last dominant Saban offensive line in the title game in 20, there's been kind of a slow deterioration of really good offensive line play at Alabama. And I think that was a game where they really got exposed. I've chatted a little bit about how much better Alabama's running game would be if they still had Haynes at running back. From what I'm hearing, the issues aren't necessarily who they've got at running back. It's more offensive line issues. And I think that's what got exposed by, I think, an underrated front seven from Oklahoma. Say what you will about Venables. Venables has turned around the Oklahoma defense. And, I also think it was just a bad day for Simpson to have a really bad day. I think this was more about maybe some Alabama weaknesses and their quarterback just having a bad day than it was, Oklahoma. No, again, I think Oklahoma's defense has really improved, but, you win the turnover by that type of margin. I mean, you have a good chance of pulling off the upset.
and that's what happened. They had a really good defense last year.
They did.
Oklahoma
They,
did.
they
Just
did.
to correct the real MVP, I think he was posting this when I was asking for a group of 5 team that had ever defeated a playoff team, but
Mhm.
Auburn did not make the playoff when they lost to Central Florida. Anyway,
Uh, I will say this. I do think Oklahoma can hold on and win that game, but by the way, there goes your chances of maybe getting 5 teams if Missouri pulls off that upset. I will say that to kind of answer that point. Um, Let me ask you this, Mark. I mean, I talked about it a little bit with Matt. Do you see? Clad had mentioned this. USC Oregon, is that essentially a play-in game?
can I go back to the SEC? What am I
If you want,
missing with
yes. Go ahead.
Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss? Those 4 in Vandy sweeps, they go 10-2. They go to the playoff.
Yeah, just to do the math on it, I do think, Alabama, as long as they win Iron Bowl, are going to be in. I do think Georgia, obviously. I do think Texas A&M. I do think that's at 3. Obviously, Ole Miss. Although I would not be surprised if Ole Miss got upset. They danced on the minefield last week. And I would say those 4 right now. Now, are you at the point if Texas springs the upset on Texas A&M? You're not going to go there. You're not going to go
That
there.
Florida loss is just too bad for me.
Okay.
Under other circumstances, I can see a 9-3 team making it. I thought it was going to happen this year, but I do not see it happening. Maybe if Oklahoma loses to LSU really close and LSU finishes 8-4, maybe we can. Oklahoma's got the best chance, and I've
Yes.
been saying this forever because of the schedule being as good as it is, and they've got that proverbial tiebreaker against a number of teams, including Michigan. So, yeah, how does the SEC not get fought?
Well, I would say
Oklahoma's going to be fifth.
if Missouri pulls the upset, that's why I went there to start with. If Missouri pulls the upset, I don't think 9-3 Oklahoma's making it.
No, I don't think they will either. But they
So
would be the one to make it. But I don't think they will either.
there's your see. I think that what the argument would be is if Oklahoma loses this week, then your 5th team could possibly be Texas if they pulled the upset of an undefeated Texas A&M. Now, I mean, if you're 9-3 Texas and you're saying that your 2 losses were in Columbus and in Athens, Georgia, that's not all bad. Now, you did get embarrassed in Athens last week. And the Florida loss is unforgiving, but you could say you legitimately beat an Oklahoma team that's maybe going to be a top 10 to 12 team, and you beat the number 2 or number 3 team in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make a case, Mark. You could make a case. And I'm not here to carry SEC water. I'm just stating what the wins are and what the bad losses are. You're not so confident, though, even if they pull off the A&M win. I don't think they are anyway, but,
Yeah, I don't think they will either. And where are they positioned now? They dropped to like 17th.
Yeah.
And they're going to have a number 3 team as a win. Why are we not talking about Vanderbilt?
It's a good point. I think maybe I'm confident Vanderbilt's going to lose another game.
Okay.
Maybe. Well, you don't think they lose that last game, or you're not?
Well, they play Tennessee. I think that's generally a toss-up. I don't know where the game is.
You think that's generally closer to a toss-up?
Well, I think whoever's going to be at home is going to be the favorite. I think Vegas is going to value those teams almost evenly.
Now, see, I'm as confident. Georgia, as long as they're at 10-2, are going to get in, so they could afford the loss to Georgia Tech and still get in. Correct?
What happens if one of these 2-loss teams loses a 3rd game in the SEC championship game?
I don't know if they would be penalized for that.
Yeah.
I think right now, I do think I think the only path that really could stop the 5 from happening is Missouri. Well, Ole Miss or Missouri getting upset would be the path to it happening. Or Auburn pulling the ultimate upset in the Iron Bowl. Those are the paths to me, because I think Georgia and Texas A&M are the only teams that I could see right now are going to be in pretty solid shape. I could see Ole Miss getting upset. I could see Oklahoma getting upset, and I could see well, no, Iron Bowl is. I just think Auburn is too much in disarray.
I could see any of those happening. We've seen Auburn play Alabama extremely close and win those games at home. That's where they are. That's the least likely of happening. Oklahoma's got to get through 2 decent opponents,
Okay.
not just one.
All right. Just to the Big Ten, if I may. Are you? I was just going to go there. The Clapp point is he believes USC and Oregon is a play-in game. Are you of the belief that that is essentially a play-in game, or do you still think there's a path for a 10-2 Oregon game team, even if they lose that game?
I think that if Oregon loses that game,
Yeah.
there's still a 25 or 30% chance, again, depending on where they're playing, that they're going to lose the last game of the season against Washington. So let's say they lose to USC close, and they're losing the tiebreaker to USC, and we've got 2 other teams from the Big Ten, and we've got the G5, and we got the ACC, and we got the Big 12. We've got Notre Dame.
Yep. That's when you get a little bit interesting.
And then that's where we've got either 5 from the SEC and no USC, or 4 from the SEC and USC, because obviously they'll win the tiebreaker against Oregon and Michigan. And there's no other connection to make between USC and the SEC. So it's a flat out USC's wins, Oregon, Michigan, Iowa. Am I missing anyone? Those are the 3 best wins.
Yeah.
Who are we comparing them to? A 10-2. If Oklahoma wins out, then forget it. USC's not going to get in.
Well, no, well, if USC beats Oregon, here's the numbers. I think if you go 5 SEC, you go 3 Big Ten, you're only going to get in the 3 at that point. See, I think Oregon would be out at that point. That's what I'm saying. I think this is a play-in game. Then I think you have, the 2 teams in the Big Ten title game, Ohio State, Indiana, and then USC becomes your 3rd team out of the Big Ten with a win this week and a 10-2 record. And then I think you go 5 SEC, 3 Big Ten, 1 ACC, 1 Big 12, 1 non-power 5. Notre Dame gets you to 12. There's your 12.
This is where I'm knocking out USC and giving them little hope. Would be Texas A&M's in, Georgia's in,
right?
Bama, aside from an upset's in.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, aside from an upset's in, or even with a loss, is being compared to USC. Then, if they lose to Mississippi State, and then Oklahoma's going to get in, or Vandy. There's a couple different options there. For a 5th SEC team, you've got 2, not even counting Texas, you've got 2 options of teams to compare to USC that are going to be 10-2. And Oklahoma is definitely going to win that battle against USC. They're already 8 versus Oklahoma's 15, and they're going to have 2 more decent wins.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that you can have your 5 SEC and then 3 Big Ten and USC being your 3rd Big Ten team. And
5,
you get
3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Yeah, there's your math.
USC's at 15, Vandy's at 14. USC gets the bump because of the Oregon win on the road, more so than Vandy would against Tennessee, although that's a road game.
There you go. I think the only way this gets interesting is, it could get interesting maybe if you could make a case for a 10-2 Oregon, but I don't think Oregon has anything in positive wins unless, and that, not that USC would be the greatest win ever, although Notre Dame's hanging their hat on that as being their biggest win right now, of course. But, what is Oregon's biggest win? They really have to get to 11-1. I think.
Yeah,
I
they
think
do.
they have. I think they
Well,
have to.
they mostly do because they're going to have a tiebreaker against USC also to deal
Mm-hmm.
with that they can't get past. Um, and obviously a 10-2. So if it's Oregon 11-1, they're in. USC's out. But if it's a 10-2 USC, then yeah, we bring in all these comparisons that we have to deal with, also from places like Miami,
Mm-hmm.
BYU sitting at a couple spots ahead of USC. I think they're at 11. I
Mm-hmm.
think BYU's at 11.
Yeah,
No,
they
they're
are at
higher
11.
than that.
No, I thought I just checked it. I thought
Wherever
they
they
were at
are.
11. Yeah, go ahead.
But
Now,
they're not going to have any wins to. But if BYU wins a rematch against Texas Tech, then USC's got to deal with Texas Tech as a second Big 12 team.
so you could see you're more likely to see two Big 12 teams than two ACC teams.
Yes.
Okay, so you could see a world. So what you're saying, you think that if BYU pulls the upset on Texas Tech, you think then that both could make the playoff?
Well, BYU will make the playoff. Texas
Right.
Tech is number 5 in the country right now.
Yeah. How much would
And
they? Yeah, that's a good point.
despite maybe our lack of respect or other people's lack of respect for BYU, they're 11th in the country. So losing as number 5 to number 11 in a conference championship game when you already defeated that team by 3 scores is not going to really, if the committee's consistent, is not going to ding Texas Tech much.
Yeah, I think the thing, but if you roll down Texas Tech's quality wins, you're going to have one, which is BYU. I mean, are you really excited about what? I don't know.
Well, yeah, if you want to evaluate it from that standpoint, which is the way to do it, but the committee's
Right.
already put them at number 5 in the country.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's too much to fall with just a loss to BYU in the Big 12 title game. I get your point.
Now, based on what I saw, do I think
Yeah.
BYU is going to beat Texas Tech? No, but we've all seen a million times a team win a second matchup.
Well, yeah, I guess that's your chance. I mean, Mark is pro chaos, so Mark's best chance for chaos might be that happening, or maybe to upset Texas A&M.
Sure.
To maybe get them in, because if they're at 17 and they beat the third best team in the country, where does that get them? I don't know.
It's all dependent on other teams. It's not.
That's true.
It's not in a vacuum, but it's that Florida loss. I just think is going to kill Texas.
Yeah, well, But by the way, the other thing too, USC also really regretting that Illinois loss.
Sure.
Last second field goal. Yeah, really.
Yeah, the Big Ten is.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I mean, the Big Ten this year, and by the way, we don't have to worry about late November. That's, they might as well make their trip to whatever lower tier bowl game and plan for the off season. That crowd's already written it off anyway. I don't want to go there. I shouldn't start talking, Mark. I've done too much talking on this in the past. I'm not going to put my hand on that stove. There'll be plenty of opportunity to talk about that. I'm not even going to go there. Hey, by the way, Texas Tech, everybody's talking about Texas Tech. Has anybody mentioned their payroll this year? All I heard last season is everybody mentioned Ohio State's payroll and how much they were paying for their players. Has anybody been talking about Texas Tech's payroll, by the way?
I've heard it mentioned, and I'm not a consumer of college football content anymore, but the only time I really heard it was actually Fowler and Herbstreit were talking about it during the Texas Tech BYU game, and they wanted to clear up, at least Fowler did, that Texas Tech was the 5th, according to whatever sources he had. I don't believe he cited the sources, the 5th highest paid roster in America, and he was stating that in a pro Texas Tech lean, meaning they're not outspending everybody. They're number 5.
Yes. Well, I mean, somebody had said that they had spent over $7 million just on D-line talent, and I could see that because they have. I think after Ohio State, a case could be made. They have maybe the second or third best defense in the country. I will say this on last thing. I want to defend my favorite team here real quick. Dano on ESPN has to say that there was, no case for Ohio State being number one or the least tested number one. I mean, I know. First of all, I know you try to be objective, and that I think you do a very good job of it.
I did hear that.
Yeah, I know. I had the same expression you just did, which is, I mean, and this is what I've said about Notre Dame, and it's how I've kind of defended Notre Dame from this standpoint. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, but I think there is something to the term eye test. When you just watch this team, when you see this team, and you say, man, that team's got a lot of really good football players. They may have more really good football players than any team in the country, and I'm not saying it's always about the NFL draft. I'm not. Otherwise, we'd have a lot more national championships here. But what I would say is when you watch this team, they just look different. I'm sorry, and I consume a fair amount of college football, Mark, and I just don't think there's a more complete team in the country. I'll stand by that. I think that a person like Dano just doesn't watch a lot of college football, doesn't consume a lot of college football. I think he's more of an NFL guy, and I think throwing out a statement like that, miss me on that, Mark. I'm sorry.
I am looking for my.
You have a thought.
I am looking for my response to. I didn't know that we called him Dano, but Dan Orlovsky.
Yes, Dano.
It's buried somewhere. It's been so long since I made that rebuttal to him. But I did see him make an ignorant comment about Ohio State. And, I always liked Dan Orlovsky when I've heard him comment when I used to watch those shows and hear more of his takes on the NFL.
Yeah.
Although he was in the booth for college football games for a few seasons at least. And I thought he did a good job. But now I guess just being on social media, or I think something gets into these guys.
Yeah.
It's maybe this Stephen A factor that they think they have to like shock people.
That's right.
Say dumb things just to rile people up or show that they're different. So yeah, that was a stupid comment. I don't recall exactly what it was, but you framed it up pretty well. But I responded to him. I was hoping he would get back to me because I
was this on X, Mark? Were you on your?
Yes, that's what I'm scrolling through looking for.
Okay, I didn't know you were. I thought Mark was trying to stay off of social media. Okay.
So yes, Dan Orlovsky. I should have scrolled through this on the laptop here so I could have showed everyone. But anyway, he says, yes, they're the least tested number one team in the history of college football. They've played nobody. We have no idea how good Ohio State is, down by 4 in the fourth quarter. Okay. A couple stupid things about that. Number one would be I highly doubt that Dan Orlovsky has researched the schedules of every number one team in the history of college football. I may be wrong, but maybe he was up until 2:00 in the morning looking at the 1937 Minnesota Golden Gophers. I don't know.
Mark Rogers would do that. Mark Rogers.
I would do that to verify myself on that.
Not Dano.
The next statement has to do with we have no idea how good Ohio State is. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the issue with that statement. Like I made a comment early in the season when you and I would have conversations and others would jump on here and kind of talk about, what do we make of this season in terms of who's good and who's not good? And then, LSU goes out and beats Clemson and then they look bad a couple weeks later. And, it's kind of that, they beat them and they beat them, but are they really as good as what they thought? And we play that game. What I will hold to, and it's proven out, is that I didn't know that Ohio State was the best team in the country. I still don't. I think they are. But I knew that they were good. I knew that they were one of the 3 to 5 best. They didn't even have to barely step on the field. I just had to see the Texas game and know they're one of the 3 to 5 best teams in the country. And I can say that with the most conviction, not because I'm an Ohio State fan, but because when programs don't change, i.e. Nick Saban at Alabama, there's an amount of trust there. There's an amount of confirmation of roster turnover, we reload, we're the same program versus this roller coaster that other programs go through. So I was certain. And so for him to say, we have no idea how good Ohio State is, my response was, Dan, great job researching every number one team in the history of college football.
Wow.
And then I said, and that's like saying, quote, we really don't know how good a team Stanford is because they have never been up by 40 in the fourth quarter yet.
Good old Dano. Yeah, I'm sure his crack research staff pulled over, years of college football data for him to come up with all these amazing takes that he can take on the shouty shows on ESPN, So, but that's what your former employer is about nowadays, I guess, Mark. So, well, we know you're better off without him, and we as college football fans are better off with Mark Rogers. I'll tell you that, ladies and gentlemen.
No, thank you, David.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
And as is the case many times, I have to apologize to future callers because we will get you all on. However, I tend to give that first caller just forever. And I should, this is where my producer fails me. My graphics people fail me. My producer fails me. Got all sorts of people failing me. I should just get rid of them. So we'll go semi-rapid fire here with about 10 minutes to go. Amazon links in the description section of this video and all the videos when you shop on Amazon. Please use the link that we provide. That would be phenomenal. We're going to have a show after the national championship game like no show we've ever had here at the Voice of College Football. That's what you call a tease. I know it's a long distance tease for the future, but we will have a show like no other show we've ever had at the Voice of College Football. Not necessarily the best show or the worst show, just different. All right, the real MVP showing up.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How's it going?
It's going well. I know you're trying to wrap this thing up quickly, but I think instead of one person, maybe adding a second person in a Hall of Fame Trey, because he challenged me to the debate.
Oh.
He's been chatting to me in the comments section. So,
all right, Hall of Fame Trey. Well,
yeah.
There we go.
Hello, Mark. Hey, Darrell.
Hey, Trey. How are you doing this evening?
I'm all right. Let's talk about college football.
Take the next few minutes off and just let you boys dive in.
Yeah. So, Trey, you've been saying a lot of interesting things. I'll just start from the top, and then I guess I'll just work my way down. So you currently don't believe 5 SEC teams are going to make the college football playoff, despite 5 of them being ranked inside the top 10. So evidence do you have for it just to be a crazy take to think 5 are going to make it at this point?
First, let's be honest here. Not all of the top 12 teams you see now, who's going to say it's going to be that way 2 weeks later? I think half of them might be out of this, from 6 to 12.
Half of them.
Or they could be in play. Some might make it in. Yes.
Only half of the 12 are going to make it?
If you look at it,
all right.
Ohio State's going to be in. Indiana's going to be in. Georgia, Texas Tech, Ole Miss. Very impressive. Also, Texas A&M. Now, I'm a little bit curious about Texas A&M. They do have Texas. And what happens if they lose that game? And also, what happens if they make it to the SEC championship? Will they be out too? That's very
well. Let me just get rid of that point immediately. If Texas A&M loses to Texas, they cannot make the SEC championship game.
You sure about that?
They're a virtual.
They have 0 losses in the conference.
No. If they lose to Texas, they're 7-1. Okay, they have the worst tiebreakers out of Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Therefore, if they lose to Texas, and either Alabama or Ole Miss win their game, Texas A&M is out.
Okay.
So they're a lock. They are the biggest lock in the country.
Right.
Mm.
And it's because their conference opponents are so bad. It's like, what is it, 13-42 or something insane like that?
I would also put that into question too, because look at that. I would also say that too. Look who they beat also. So it makes me wonder if they did lose to Texas, and if they even somehow everybody gets destroyed at the very last 2 weeks, and that's very impossible. What happens if they go to the SEC championship and then lose again? They'd probably be out. There's nobody they are proud of in this resume. Florida, no. Arkansas, no. LSU's washed. Missouri's not that good. South Carolina, and now that's South
Right.
Carolina.
I think maybe you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm saying it's impossible unless Alabama and Ole Miss lose. Texas
That could be
A&M
possible.
cannot make the play at the SEC title game.
That could be possible.
So you're telling me it's possible
Of course, it's
that
possible.
Alabama loses
Of
to
course it's
Auburn?
possible. Rivalry
Trey,
week.
Trey, we love you. Trey, we love you, but we're not going to spend the last 7-8 minutes of this show arguing about Texas A&M's 3% chance of going to the SEC championship game if they lose to Texas. It's just not worth, we will be here for 18 hours if we're going to spend 10 minutes on that point. They will be out of the SEC championship game. Is it possible that Alabama loses the Iron Bowl and Ole Miss loses the Egg Bowl? Absolutely, it's possible.
Absolutely. Especially those two rivalries.
Possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not
But
gonna
we're
say
not going to
we're not
sit and
gonna-
argue a stupid point for 10 minutes because we know what the deal is. And Texas A&M has a 98% chance of not going to the SEC championship game if they lose to Texas. And they will obviously be in the SEC championship game with 0 losses and will be a playoff lock if they beat Texas. So we're not, if you could give me a nuts and bolts breakdown of the Ole Miss Mississippi State game and why Mississippi State is going to pull off this match, that would be one thing. But just sit there and argue and say it's possible. Yes, we know it's possible. It's that possible.
Yeah. What's the next question you got?
So you say half these teams are not going to make the college football playoff. They're currently in the top 12.
Yes.
All that matters is the top 10 because currently BYU, Utah, those teams aren't in the college football playoff because the G5 and ACC team have to jump.
You're missing a point here. From 7 to 12, this could be a change up, right?
Yes, but 10 and 11 and 12 don't matter.
So you got the USC at 15, then you got Oregon. So I think they're going to lose anyway. I think Oregon will lose. That will drop them out. They do not have the resume to be in the top 12. They lose this game.
Correct. But
I think they're done. If they lose to USC, if they got any more trip ups, I don't know what their schedule looks like after
UCLA.
Oregon. Oh, they should be in. If somehow they goof that up, they'll be out too.
yes.
Most likely, Oregon will be out. And I think they will be out.
Right.
There's no way. Oregon have not shown nobody enough to be in the playoffs. If they lose this game, and they would probably, but if they even did, they're not going to be in the Big Ten either. They got to have some value going to be dropped down.
Right, but the overall point I'm making is you said 5 SEC teams make the playoff. If Oregon loses to USC, Notre Dame beat USC, USC beat Oregon. So there's a hard cap between those teams.
Yes.
So what's going to the only SEC team that could fall out is Alabama because Alabama is in between Notre Dame. But I don't see the committee putting USC and Oregon both ahead of Alabama with that loss, unless you think that's possible. So I don't understand why USC beating Oregon would impact 5 SEC teams making the playoff. If anything, it would increase the odds of an SEC team making the playoff because Vanderbilt at 10-2 would probably make the playoff, or maybe a BYU team that's 11-2 would make it, or somebody like that. So I don't see how this really plays a factor in your first overall point.
Well, I'll say this. Now, Oklahoma got 2 more good competitors, and no matter what you say about, no matter what anybody says about LSU, they're still dangerous, and they always will be. First, they got to get past Missouri. If they don't get past Missouri, I don't think they're going to be in. It'd be very interesting. Their defense hasn't been the same. Their offense has not been the same since John Mateer's injury. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. And Alabama isn't either, to be honest with you. Those 2 teams might be out.
Okay, so if Alabama wins their last 2 games, how would they be out of the college football playoff? Are you just saying that based off of eye test, or is it Oklahoma's loss to Missouri would leave Alabama out of the playoff. What are you making by this claim?
If Missouri beats Oklahoma, they're out just because of the Missouri loss. I mean, I don't think there's a way for them to recover at all. Alabama, if they went out and they go to the SEC championship, also you're saying that they will take in the conference loser into factor, right?
Yes, they are. The committee has openly said they're taking that 13th data point and that they're going to treat it as such. He said that Tuesday, or something very similar.
And so there's a possibility of Oklahoma loses to Missouri and somehow Alabama goes to the SEC championship and they lose to either Texas A&M or whoever they play, Georgia, it doesn't matter. They will be out of that playoff. That's how those two will be out.
They will be out. Okay.
Who?
They will be out. But what do you think the odds of all this happening is? Because when you say it like my problem with your claim is you make it like a hard and fast claim that it's crazy 5 SEC teams. You're talking about like this has to happen, then this has to happen, then this has to happen. I mean, you're talking about things that only have like a pretty small chance in all of these things happening at once.
Trey, remember you were telling me that there's no way Texas could beat Oklahoma. Remember
Yeah, that's
that
true. But who knew that? Hey, who
I'm
knew
just kidding you.
Who knew John Mateer was not going to be that good?
Well, what if we established, Trey, that all these things that have to happen for the SEC to only have 4 teams in the playoffs, Oklahoma has to lose one of its last 2 games.
And it most likely can happen. I see. I really see it.
Let's not make any. I'll eliminate expletive comment on that. Just let's run them down. Oklahoma has to lose one of its final 2 games.
Yes.
Alabama has to lose in the Iron Bowl or go to the SEC championship game and lose. And I'm not totally sold on that point, but
how about they get dominated and absolutely obliterated?
Okay.
No, that
Alabama's
could be
losing, as we can all forecast and see, 42-10 in the SEC championship game. Okay. What else has to happen?
Vanderbilt has to lose a game.
Yeah, they got to lose to Tennessee or somebody. Okay.
And that
or Kentucky.
Too, for sure. Especially Tennessee.
That's a 50-50 game, by the way. Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game. I think Tennessee somehow passes Vanderbilt. And also, I will add this too.
Do you play parlays, Trey?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But also, think about this way. Tennessee, I also want to bring this in there too. We talk about Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Alabama. Don't forget Tennessee. Tennessee, they're just close enough in striking distance. They can get in the playoffs. They're close enough. But
if Tennessee can make the playoffs at 9-3, then Texas and Oklahoma can make the playoffs at 9-3. Oklahoma's by far got the best resume in the country at 9-3. They're going to have the best win in Alabama, and they're going to have a very comparable bubble win against Michigan. Whereas Tennessee's best win is going to be against Vanderbilt in this.
And by the way, Trey, Oklahoma and Tennessee played.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
Yeah.
That's why that also is important, and they need more help as well, as I stated, because they need Oklahoma to have 2 more losses and they can jump them.
There's not enough teams that can lose for Tennessee to make the playoffs. They need Michigan to lose a game or 2. Yep. They would need USC to lose a game or 2. They need Notre Dame to lose a game or 2.
That's what I said. That's why I said they need help.
They don't need just help. They need like everything. They need like 20 things to happen.
Yeah, but
you can't plane crashes.
But also it will help them if they beat Vanderbilt. I mean,
that would help, but I mean, it would increase their chance from like 1% to 1.5%. Like, you need like 30 things to happen, bro. It's not happening.
I don't think it's happening either, but I want everybody to know that you can't. I think it's very important. You got the outsiders. We're not talking about like Tennessee and Michigan. Those teams are in striking distance. And I wouldn't be surprised if they are, talked about, maybe making the playoffs. Maybe even though they have a slim chance, it could happen. Tennessee, you got to be in the top. Let's say that you got to be in the top 20.
What you got to finish in the top 10. There's no way a 3-loss SEC team that has the.
If you got to be in right now, what we're talking about, like from all the way from BYU, well, I take it Alabama, all the way to Tennessee. If you're not in that top 20 in that 10 ranking positions, there's no way being in the playoffs. And I'm starting right now in the next 2 weeks and conference. This is where it gets crucial. Virginia, their only shot is to get in the playoffs. They got to beat whoever is in the conference championship, and that's mostly like Georgia Tech.
It'll be the Georgia Tech Pitt game winner.
Yeah, that's true. But who most likely is Georgia Tech in a lot of people's opinion, right? Is that what your opinion is too?
I think Georgia Tech wins the game. Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it really don't matter at the end of the day. But I guess my point to you is, you earlier in this conversation, you were talking about a 3-loss Oklahoma team, how they have no chance to make the playoff.
I don't.
But
think
here
so.
you are now telling me a 3-loss Tennessee team that lost to Oklahoma can make the college football playoff. I just don't understand that. Like, I don't understand that.
I will say this: they got blown out by Texas. That was bad.
Okay.
They lost to
Okay.
Texas.
So how does that help the fact that Tennessee?
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, Oklahoma beat them head to head.
didn't
You're
say
just
Tennessee
discounting
won't make
that
the
because
playoff.
of a different game and a different team blew them out.
If you
What?
look, that Oklahoma, their resume is not as good you think it is.
My brain cells are valuable.
What?
They're valuable. I don't have that many left. Trey.
Oklahoma's got one of the best resumes in the country.
Trey,
If their resume's not good, then nobody's resume's not good.
Trey, you've gone off the rails.
Do
You were
think,
selling me on Pitt being a really good football team and just this Titanic win the other night. I can't do it tonight. No. Oklahoma's got the best resume or would for a 9-3 football team in America.
But don't you think the Texas loss actually hurts them more because they got blown out by Georgia? They got destroyed.
Any loss, just about any loss hurts anyone.
But also they lost to Florida. Yes. So the Texas resume and the team of Texas is going to really hurt Oklahoma, and the loss to Missouri is not going to look good.
Okay. Let me distill this down in a very simple point. Tennessee and Oklahoma, they played this thing called a football game. Okay? Where the two teams meet up on the field. Therefore, we can extrapolate that from the result that the winner of that game is better than the loser of that game. Okay? Are you following me so far? Okay, Oklahoma would have the same record as Tennessee. And since they played a game, people are going to value that Oklahoma beat Tennessee. Therefore, they're better than them. That's why we played the games. That's why in the national championship game, the Ohio State, when they beat Notre Dame, they didn't give the trophy to Notre Dame because people thought their resume may or may not have been better. They gave it to Ohio State because they won the game.
But you missed the point that they need a lot of help. They need Oklahoma to lose both.
Oh, okay, Trey. I think you are missing the point. We might be missing points that you've made that have like a microscopic chance of tiny little dust of happening. Those are the points that maybe we've missed. The point that you have missed is that Oklahoma going 9-3 versus Tennessee at 9-3 is not a debate for the committee. They'll go, check, Oklahoma won the game, check. Oklahoma has a better resume even outside of that game than Tennessee. They're not comparable, but they won the game. This is a stupid argument we're having. It's unbelievably a complete waste of time.
If they're arguing head-to-head, if they're arguing head-to-head, why do they put Notre Dame way above Miami? Now Miami is climbing up the rankings slowly every couple of weeks.
Those two teams play in the same conference. I'm not going to try to explain what the committee's doing there. But we understand right now, Trey, we also have a strong indication of what the committee thinks. And you know what it's called? The rankings that we've got right now. Where they've got Oklahoma number 8 in the country, and they've got Tennessee number 20 in the country. Okay. All right.
Now I've got a question for
DeReal being here. DeReal, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem, Mark. Have a great rest of your show. I look at the show when the Michigan man will talk about how they're definitely beating Ohio State and they're definitely making the playoffs at 10-2. Neither of those things are guaranteed, by the way.
Thanks, DeReal. Oh my goodness. Michael, you still with us?
Yeah. I don't have any brain cells left at all. Do you?
Thanks for hanging out.
All right. I was going to ask you this and stuff because I know it's past time and stuff like that. So, what's on your viewing schedule for this weekend?
Football.
I mean, I know that, but any.
I
Because
don't know, Michael.
the SEC is pretty much going to be playing JV teams this weekend, so no good games there.
Oklahoma, Missouri is pretty important.
Oh, okay. So that's the only conference game for the SEC.
I would guess that somebody else is playing. Vanderbilt's playing Kentucky. That's an important game.
And then of course we got the Oregon USC game, and that's in is that
Yes.
in LA or is that up in Oregon?
Autzen Stadium, Eugene,
All right.
Oregon.
All right, so that should be an interesting game.
I could only watch one game this week. That's the game I'm watching.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking also. All right, I was just wondering. All right, Mark, go recover, get some brain cells back in. I'll try to catch you tomorrow night.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Yep, have a good one.
Have a
See
good
you.
night.
You too.
All right. Trey, if you're still listening to us, Trey, you're awesome. Love you calling. But at some point, you have to listen to just some reason. Okay. We've got Adam here. Thank you so much for the contribution, Adam. Mark, in college football, I am not giving, quote, unquote, the little guy, or for that matter, the fat guy, a chance. BYU is a disgrace. North Texas and James Madison should be ashamed. How can these teams possibly be in the playoff? It's the way it's structured. Not in your playoff. Adam, next time you call, tell us the 12 teams that you would select for the playoff, based, of course, on the results to date. We'll see if there's any kind of wild cards in there like there was late last year with Florida in particular. Toes to Cane? There's got to be a backstory there. Am I missing something? Is that from a movie or something? Toes to Cane. Mark, does Amazon Link work for Canucks? Oh, let's try. What is this? My Amazon looks quite a bit different than it usually does. What is a Canuck, by the way? The only thing I know about the Canucks is the hockey team. I never knew what a Canuck was. When you look up Canucks, you just see the hockey apparel. Is it anything like, is this a made up? Let's see. What is a Canuck? Slang term for a Canadian. Okay, a Canadian. Canuck. Okay, I didn't know that. Guess I could have thought about that and figured it out. Which can be used affectionately or sometimes offensively, depending on the context. Of course, here we're using it affectionately. Named after the cartoon character Johnny Canuck, who is a symbol of Canadian resilience. They need some resilience up there these days in Canada. They need some resistance and some resilience, all of that. Yes, so get your hockey gear using the Amazon link. Thank you for that, sir. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We'll be back on Friday night. I believe we've got a double header of sorts. Florida State, NC State, and we've got Hawaii taking on UNLV. So our Hawaii contingent should be here late night on Friday. And we'll come on after the Florida State, NC State game that is worth absolutely nothing. 2 5-5 teams looking to go bowling. All right, folks. Thanks for checking in tonight. We will see you soon. Have a great Friday, and we'll see you for the Michigan Live Special Edition Friday at noon Eastern right here.